So we're going to start this session. We're going to talk about one of the legends, the first woman ever to win in India. She was the first person to win an Oscar. She was also one of the earliest, or the only woman in the progressive arts group. She was perhaps the first professional as far as costume designing is concerned. We're talking about Bhanuvataya, and we're talking about this book, which she I don't know how many of you have read this book.
I would love to have it.
Yeah. No, this is my copy. She signed this for me, and I want to read something today, what she wrote and why we are here. She says costume designing is all about giving an actor absolute confidence in the character he or she is going to inhabit, about creating a mood, transporting the audience to a different era or place. It requires organization, artistry, discipline, expertise, imagination, and more often than that, many hours of research. So let me start with you, Ashu, first. How much do you agree? You worked with her on 3 films, I think?
2 films.
2 films.
Yeah.
Tell us the process of working with Bhanuvataya, because she's come from a background which is so research oriented.
Yes.
And she's come from Kolhapur. I mean, she had a whole stint with Baburao Painter. She was also someone who had that immense knowledge on history of cinema and worked her way up through. How was it working with her and developing the costumes on your films?
So, good evening. Those are golden words what you just read.
Yeah.
It was absolutely wonderful to be working with her. It was an honor, actually. And when I wrote Lagan, when the script was done, even before I had anyone on board for producing or acting, I knew that the costumes will be done by Bhanuvataya. And quite simply for me, the most important thing was that here is a person who has almost dressed every heroine right through the 70s, and every iconic silhouette that we see of the actresses, all are hers. You know, today if you make a 60-second trailer on the heroines of India, 70% of the outfits will be hers.
Yeah, that's true.
And for me, my only worry was, will she say yes to doing a film with a director who's not had 2 successful films in the previous ones. So I tried to play the card of मी कोल्हापूरचा आहे तुम्ही पण कोल्हापूरचे आहात. So kind of my first introduction to her was that, and that kind of melted it down for her. And I narrated the entire script to her. She loved it. And coming to your question about her research, see, sometimes you do research, you're told that you have a meeting on a so-and-so day and the topic is going to be so-and-so. You go and do your research and then you go for the meeting. I've just narrated to her the entire script. I finished and she said she really liked it. And she said, I have a request. I said, what? Is it possible for you to change the year of the film? Can you push it a little ahead? And at that time, the year was 1885. And I'd chosen that year because that was the year when the Indian National Congress was formed. So I thought that it would be nice to have the birth of the INC and Bhuvan as a hero rising. So I said, okay, but why do you say that? She said, because Queen Victoria was in mourning at that time. And she came out of her mourning by the 1890 and the latter period. And that's when all the wardrobe, all the silhouettes of the entire British landscape from black and gray became colorful. And I was absolutely blown because that came just, that's a real mark of how much knowledge she had without even thinking about it. And of course, I was happy to do that, and that's how 1893 Champaner came about.
Yeah, no, it's incredible because if you really look at what her relationship with Baburao Painter, one of the great filmmakers of Kolhapur, and I remember reading in the book where she went first time to the set of Pratibha, where she saw Durga Kote in that dress, and that sort of inspired, and the early reflections of Georgette, a lot of work on Georgette, which you can see when she was dressing up Nargis, or when she was also working with Kamini Kaushal in her, well before it was all about tailoring. It was not about, many people who do not know this, that even A.K. Hangal was a tailor. And so was K. Asif. K. Asif did clothes, and but that conversion to a costume designer began with Bhanu Athaiya, and you can see the range of costumes she did all over. Sonam, you're a style icon today. Yeah, you are. I mean, and how do you? And your father has worked with her in 1942. She was the costume designer. You've seen the way she's dressed up, Helen, Nadira.
I also did I did this one shoot where I think there was I think it was Mumtaz auntie's orange sari, which is on the
Oh
cover.
yes, yes.
So
yes.
to get that drape, nobody could get that drape. So eventually, we had to stitch it on me, and I was like, how did she even dance in that sari? Brahmachari. And it's a very iconic, it's like sari which goes with the golden border. And I was like, that construction of it cannot happen now because there were no pleats on it. And it gave her a very, almost, because she had a curvaceous body, it gave her that silhouette. And what I loved about her was that she designed for the actor's body.
Absolutely.
So that is very, very important. It is not only about, yes, the period matters a lot, but to design, where does the hem go? Where does the waistline end? Where does it start? That, I think, is key.
Yeah. Shruti, thanks, Shulam. Shruti, you've designed in Jubilee, which is taking people back onto history of the 50s, 60s. I was seeing a lot of costumes of what Sadhna was wearing, or all those actresses, the churidar and the tight fitting is what Sonam is talking about. How do you view that period to today's period? I mean, I just feel that was so contemporary, and when you compare it today, how do you look at that evolution, and especially her work?
I think what she did with her work was she kept pushing barriers and boundaries with every silhouette and every character, though as much as the actor's body type plus silhouette, fabric, she never, I think she worked for the character and the film. So I just feel like now, back then they were very daring. Trust me, they're with the silhouettes that she introduced, for that era, that time, it was quite daring. Now I think we all are like floating in the same boat.
But she's spoken a lot about fabric too. I mean, there are two aspects of her which I really caught my attention. One was, of course, the use of georgette, which I said. Second is, if you see Reshma or Shera, or if you see later Lagan, of course, but the early period, her work with the Indian handicrafts, or going to the villages, finding those colors. Reshma Shera was such a revolution for me because it was so authentic. Vaida ji wearing all that jewelry, that kind of costumes. People never dressed you like that because it was still the period of the 70s where you had. At the same time, she did Buddha Mil Gaya with Vijayanti Mala, which I was shocked to see Vijayanti Mala in that costume. I couldn't believe that she would be wearing that. How do you look at that aspect of it?
I think it's mind-blowing because the amount of research that she did when it comes to embroidery, jewelry, everything is spectacular. It is amazing. And of course, Buddha Mil Gaya, she does say that, back then women were not quite that daring to wear those kind of clothes. But, she pushed that barrier. Hence, great job.
So, if you have to now look at her work, we're talking about that she's pushed the barriers, she's moved. But what is that one quality? It's not just about, is it the sense of, not just the dressing of tight fitting is the sense, but also the sense of colors, which I think is so important because I read that in the book itself that she was matching it to the roses, How do you look at that?
I think we can speak about Sir's film.
Yeah.
There is if you see the film and the way it's been shot, nobody ever seems, whether it's the background, whether it's the cinematography, whether it's the costume, it's almost uh, sir, I shouldn't be talking about your film like that. But it was just what I remember from the film is nothing ever, everything stood out, but nothing ever stood out.
Yeah.
And I think that is just brilliant. That means everybody was in synergy, including the costume designer, including the actors who were willing to wear what the costume designer gave, including the DOP, including the art director, including the director. I think that is a testament to every person on that set.
Yeah.
So just looking at Sir's film, you know, whether it was, because there were two distinct styles. You know, there was Western clothing and then there was Eastern clothing. And they all kind of came together. It never looked like they were in two different worlds. And that I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's tremendous because to do both ranges,
Yes.
which is very rare for costume designers, because you normally
Exactly.
pick what is good in Western or what is
Yes.
good in thing. Ashu, that also brings the point of the fact that keeping the director's vision, you know, uh, while Sonam is saying that she kept the colors and thing, but was it the vision of yours? Because finally you're the filmmaker, you have a vision which you want. How close was she to your vision?
You know, if I may say that she was absolutely, after hearing the narration and after doing the sessions where she's, you know, trying to, you know, absorb what the vision of the script is and what we're trying to say as a story, when she came up with the design, she was always bang on the first one. There was never any back and forth in which, you know, I'm saying to her that ye thoda sa change kar dijiye, ye aisa nahi hoga, waisa nahi hoga. She was always bang on. And apart from the silhouette and all of that, she had a great sense of drama. She knew how to take a character and give it that one little thrust, which makes that entire outfit look stand out for the character, make a mark. Is, for example, a Swades. When we moved on to Swades from Lagan, here is a costume designer who's done Reshma or Shera, and she's done Lakin, and she's done the village life.
Yeah, yeah.
But still, she wants to once again, when we went to Bhuj, she wanted to go to all the neighboring villages of Bhuj, look at how the people are dressing, you know, try and take from them, absorb from that, create the silhouette for Swades, for Lagan. And for Swades, it was a village again, it was contemporary. And we had to first create a silhouette for Mohan Bhargav. Not once did we think about, you know, here we have a star who's going to play this character and we should do something to cater to him. No, our approach was that, what is Mohan Bhargav? What does he require? And then how Shah Rukh seamlessly fits into that and comes in. So her sense of, you know, if I may just add a little bit over here, if you look at the 60s and the 70s, she was popular with not only the actors and the actresses, but she was also popular with the producers and the directors, which means a very big thing because those are all huge filmmakers. So there was a certain process, a method of functioning, absolutely gentle soul. If you interact with her,
Yeah.
she was a woman of very few words, but they were very measured, very firm, and very definite. So I think that was something which was really a part of her persona, which came into her movies. And if I may, on a closing note of mine, if I may add, here is a person who's done Ali Baba or Charlie's Chor,
Yeah.
fantasy, Soni Mahiwal, which is Eternal Love Story. And from here, she goes to the West and does a very subtle version of Gandhi.
Yeah.
How does that happen? A person who's all the time creating these larger than life looks for so many heroines and song and dance, now is doing Gandhi. I think that's an outstanding transition which
Absolutely.
she did then.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Shruti, you had one costume designer, and I'm going to come back to you, Sonam, on that. One costume designer designing the whole film. Now in films, you see everyone has a costume designer. My question is that Banuji could do that because there was a vision of the director, and she followed that, and she. So how difficult it is now when you're trying to match the vision, or there are 10 costume designers trying to match the vision of the director in one film.
I think one costume designer doing the work is only so tough. 10 together, putting all their minds and brains together is extremely tough. But I feel if you find that mid-ground and that similar note, once you have got the note, everything is easy. but getting 10 of them together, or when there are too many designers doing a film, um, it's not a easy job.
Yeah. How do you look at Sonam? Because as an
I
actor,
don't agree with having several costume designers
right.
on a film. Whichever film I've been a part of, I've tried to convince the other. I mean, for me, fortunately for me, I've worked in films besides like with bigger actors, you know, when my co-stars, when they have
Right.
their own costume designer, whether it was an Aisha, whether it was a Neerja, whether it was, you know, a Delhi Six or a Ranjana. I work with the costume designer who is working on the whole film. And, you know, we kind of do it together. You know, for example, in a Delhi Six, you know,
Yeah.
Bharti was doing the clothes of the film, and she wanted certain silhouettes, so I introduced her to Anamika, who's not a fashion designer. She's a fashion designer. She's not a costume designer, but she designed the clothes with the costume designer's vision. In Ranjana, I worked with the costume designer. So for me, I'm not very comfortable working with my own costume designer. I'm a director's actor and I'm a
Right.
producer's actor. You know, I'm a producer with my
Yeah,
sister
absolutely.
myself, and I don't agree with that. And you know, now there's a new trend where one costume designer will only do the leads, and there'll be another costume designer who will do the background artists and stuff like it. There's never a
Yeah,
synergy between
I
the two.
agree.
And in my last two films, we had that problem. And so, you know, I do not agree with it.
Yeah.
It's like having three DOPs on a
Yeah,
film
absolutely.
or having two directors. I feel the lead, these are HODs of a film.
Yeah.
And an HOD should be an HOD. There shouldn't be five HODs.
I
I mean, that's might be a little controversial, as
No, no, but
usual,
we all agree.
statement. So for me, I haven't maybe in like a Prem Ratan Dhan Payo or maybe a big film where I'm a part of a big film, then I will have to have my own designer because everybody has multiple designers. But in the films that I've done, which are my smaller films that I do, we've not had that.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
No, I agree. That's the way it should be. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. Ashu, Akbar and Judha Akbar, I mean, how did you decide to, with Bhanuji, to set the period? Because I know it's 16th century, it's a time of Akbar, but still, I mean, to get the costumes and to get, what was you know, it's very fascinating for me to understand the research on that aspect. And how did you work about the colors?
Yeah, no, let me correct you a little bit on that.
Yeah.
So I wanted Bhanutai for
Yeah.
Jodha Akbar,
Yeah.
but by that time she had you know she wanted to reduce all her work.
Yeah. Right.
So she had to, with, despite my persistence and trying to request her, she had to pass on it.
Yeah.
So Jodha Akbar was done by Neeta Lulla.
Okay. Yeah.
But if I may add to that,
Yeah.
just to give you a sense of the grace of an HOD, the grace of Bhanuvataya.
Yeah.
This very book that you're holding just now
Yeah.
has got a chapter on jewelry. And though she was not connected with the film at all, she has praised Jodha Akbar in the book.
Yeah, I know.
Where she talks about the design, she says about how accurate
The
all
jewelry.
the designs were, how the jewelry was, how
Yeah.
the entire, the whole wardrobe of the film was, which I thought was a very, very graceful thing to do. Yeah. But for her to say it in her own book,
Right.
appreciation, I think that was amazing.
You know, so I think Avi had shot the posters with just I think they were mid shots. I remember so clearly, and I remember going to the cinema, and you know they were backlit, those, and I just thought it was they were such striking images, and they felt new, and at the same time they felt like they were from from a long time ago. At the
Yeah.
same time, yeah.
Setting that period, yeah.
It was,
Shruti, you've seen Banuji's work over the years. Tell me about one aspect of Banuji which still, I mean, what inspires you?
Just one.
Maybe two, maybe three, yeah.
So I think after reading her book, one thing that really inspires me about her is every film that she's done, she's put equal amount of efforts into it. at no given point has her efforts reduced or her research reduced or her dedication or passion reduced, which talks so much in general. Like today we tell 20-year-olds that have passion, work harder, show it in every project, be there. I think that's what is extremely inspiring for me.
Ashu, you spoke about the book, right? And the book is exactly a reflection of who she is. Yeah. I mean, the meticulousness and the manner in which she's written, the detailed and almost chronological, it follows a chronology. And if you look at her entire history, what is it that, and you worked with her, what is it that you want to remember her for?
Oh, I would straight away say her meticulousness, her eye for detail, and getting that detail absolutely right. In Swadesh, we had a song which was the Ramlila song, and in that, the Sita's wardrobe, the color of that sari that Sita was wearing, was so very important for her. Because for me, it could have been the same sari, the color as Mumtaz ji is wearing.
Yeah.
And it would have still been fine. But she went and found that right color, which was for the character of Geeta in the film. So I think that, or even the look of Mohan Bhargav, the kind of shirts, we shopped in New York for it. She would go, the very fact that she was to go out and do the details herself, not rely on any big research teams or, get an assistant to go and do the job for her. No. So I think that is something which is stuck with me. I remember her to be the most hardworking, the most soft-spoken, and well, the only complaint that I have against her is that she never gave me any of the sketches which she made for Mime 2 films. And I kept telling her that, please, let me take a photocopy of it. Let me take a... and she did not part with it.
So let's see some of the sketches. We have some of the sketches. Can we see them now?
Yeah.
Just to reflect before I go to Sonam. Oh, wow. Yeah. These are some of the sketches, thanks to Radhika, who's with us.
Amrapali was outstanding.
Yeah.
Amrapali's wardrobe.
My favorite was the Guide. There's a very long song in Guide where Wahidaji's changed multiple costumes.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I keep seeing that song because that was brilliant.
We are also very fortunate that Radhika, Banuji's daughter, is here with us. And thanks to her, we've got these images to see. Thank you, Radhika, for coming. And thank you, Indrajit, for initiating everything possible on this. Yeah, so wonderful. Does your costume designers bring these kind of sketches to you anymore? Or it's more like now on...
So I've had the privilege of working with some brilliant people, brilliant directors.
Yeah.
And whether it's a Sanjay Leela Bansali, whether it's a Rakesh Mehra.
Yeah, of course.
And they're very involved and equally all the HODs are equally involved. I've worked with a brilliant costume designer called Thea who did full Nirja with me, and just the detail of getting that Pan Am costume right and everybody's clothes right. So, I've had some brilliant people working with me.
Yeah. No, but if you have to now think about Bhanuvathai as a costume designer and the range you've seen in the work, what is one thing which sort of Sorry? No. Yeah. What is one thing which you want to keep in your mind and say, is there anything which inspires in that work? One thing.
So I have done period dramas where I've always, for some reason, every director, even though I'm known for my clothes, in real life, every director likes me in simple clothes with no makeup. And I'm always the girl next door. I have never done a period film with jewelry and Indian clothes, and it's never been, I've never done a dramatic film like that. I've always, wearing simple salwar kameezes, and I'm from, Chandni Chowk, or I'm from a small village in Punjab, or one of those, people like me with, it's very simple, let me just say. So my dream is to do a period dramatic role one day, let's say.
and have costumes like Bhanuji
Yes,
did.
100%.
And,
Be like that. I've never done. I've never worn dramatic. I think that's why I fulfill it on the red carpet. I've never worn
yeah.
dramatic costumes in a film.
So wonderful, wonderful dialogue on Bhanuji, and we're remembering her today. Thanks. And if you guys can get hold of this book, please do read it, because we are going to be, I mean, there's a nomination for the best book on cinema, but this is something which is so special. Thank you, all of you.
Thank
May I
you
just
so-
step in for a moment?
Yeah.
I'd like to invite Radhika ji on
Yeah,
stage.
I was going to, yeah.
Please,
Yeah.
we'd like to hear from you a few
Yeah.
things about. Please come.
Yeah. Please. We're also going to open it out to the questions to the, after that. Yeah. No, let's go.
Good evening, everybody. To speak about my mother really is speaking about her years of dedication, and literally she ate, lived, breathed art. This was her passion. There was no way, if you asked her where she wanted to go or what was her special meal that she would want to have, she'd say, "Mujhe museum le chalo, mujhe wahan dekhna hai." You know, that was her kind of thing. But that focus she was able to give also because she single-handedly did the costumes. She made the design, made the sketch, and invariably it was the first sketch that got approved, whether it was with Raj Kapoor ji, where, for instance, he asked her to, he gave her the vision for Satyam Shivam Sundaram. And he said ki mujhe aise chahiye. He played some music on the harmonium, and then he said, "Aap socho, main jaake chai ka intezam karta hu." By the time he came back, she had about 7 sketches ready for him, and each and every one he wrote okay, and he paid her for an advance immediately. And it was a very difficult one, my mother kept saying, because she had to use as little cloth as possible. She had the advantage that it was somebody like Zeenat Aman, who had the most gorgeous body and carriage. Her carriage was exemplary. So she always said that it was a pleasure dressing her up, yet giving her enough cloth to prevent the male gaze, to protect her from that. That was very important for her. Similarly for Helen ji, when she did the cabaret designs. Now, it was always the woman's body, sensuous body. That was always the need of the hour for Helen ji's clothes. But Helen ji always wore a skin-colored lining on her stomach, on her sleeves. She was so particular. She was the most sensuous woman I have seen in all these years. But she was so particular, and my mother always respected each star's requirement in that sense. Because basically they had to be comfortable when they went before the camera. That was the important thing. Like, for instance, Sahib Bibi Gulam, the sari that Meena Kumari ji wears when she's dressing up. And she was supposed to be a zamindar's wife from Bengal, wearing the true Dhakai sari, which is stiff, which makes you look bloated. So Wahida ji said, "Main wo nahi pehnungi because I look like a sack of potatoes." So my mother got net. She did the same Dhakai motifs embroidered, and I have seen it embroidered on my veranda sitting there because her embroiderers were there on the veranda. Wow. And that was the detail that she did. So, I mean, how wow did Meena Kumari ji look? She was dressing up and she was draping the sari, looking absolutely stunning. And nobody, not even the true blue cold-blooded Bengali could say that it wasn't actually a Dhakai, because it passed muster. So you have to kind of, you're constantly juggling with tradition and yet trying to adapt it to the times and using fabrics that make people comfortable. Like Rekha ji was the first person for whom my mother made those stretch churidars, which all of us wear now. And we're talking about, what, 30 years ago, 35 years ago? 40 years ago, right? I mean, I've lost track of time. Literally one of the...
1970, we think it's 30 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
It's almost 50. 50 years ago, yeah.
So, you know, it's just, these are little things which are very interesting. Okay, ठीक আছে. So, I mean, there are lots of little stories that I can tell you about this, but I will end with one about Amrapali. At that time, this kind of bold costume was never done because it was molded on the Ajanta Ellora look, the statues that were there, the carving that was done. But she said she would wear it. She carried it off beautifully. Not once did she look as though everything was falling out. She looked absolutely statuesque. And when they had the Muhurat, they had it at Ajanta. And Prithviraj ji was there, Geeta Bali was there, and Vaijayanti ji was brought in a carriage carried by 4 people. It was a very dramatic entry. And after that, Prithviraj ji came up to my mother and said, "Mujhe to lagta hai main Ajat Shatru ke samay mein chala gaya." You know, it was amazing. So on that note, let me end that.
Thank you very much. I think we can all sit. We'll open out questions from any of you. Like to ask any questions? Anyone has questions? No one?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant.
There's one question, yeah, please.
Hi, this is Anna from Indian Express. Sonam, it was really kind of you to say that you're a director and Hi, this is Sana from Indian Express. Sonam, of course, you mentioned how you're a director and producer's actor. But tell me, has it ever happened that you did not like the costume that was given on a film, and how did you deal with it? And Ashutosh, for you also, like, how do you convince actors to actually go for it, even when they're not really keen on wearing those costumes?
So costumes usually don't come on right on set and then you have to like deal with, I mean, at least with me, it's not happened. It's always pre-decided. We do trials, fittings, look tests. And at that time, there's always a discussion, you know. So there's always a discussion. So it's always pre-decided, at least for me. I don't know, sir, you worked with other, you know, I don't know if that's always happened with you.
You know, first and foremost, the actor has to be comfortable.
Comfortable, yeah.
Before he comes on set. And the biggest bother that any actor can have, if he or she feels from inside that they're not looking good. And that can create chaos on set. Because, you know, the lines are not going to flow rightly because they're constantly bothering. It's like, you know, how we dress for a party and till we don't really feel correct, the right bag, the right pair of shoes, the right stole, you don't step out of the house. It's the same thing. So I like to do as many discussions, as many sittings as possible with the costume designer, with the actor and actress. Maybe do all the trials, make sure that they're comfortable in what they're wearing. And that's what comes on set. So it's sorted much in
Usually,
advance.
most of the time sorted. There's once or twice when the DOP is like the light is not matching the costume. So that must have happened, no?
No, but I bring in the DOP also for the sittings.
I was like, आपने तो बोल दिया था.
Yeah.
And Sonam, have you ever taken back a costume from a film that you really liked and you wish like I'll wear it in my real life and just taken it back home or as a memory?
I haven't worn any costumes in my thing, but I have a lot of. I always keep some costumes from some set, always.
Any examples?
Yeah, I mean, from Aisha, I have something from every film?
Hi, Ashutosh. This is Sohail here from Instant Bollywood. You're known for your period film, and a period film, requires lots of costumes, in fact, like, and you're known for taking, a little long time to make a film. So how much time does go into costume? Like mahine ya saal, I mean.
I think any good costume design for the film, it's not just about the sketching and the drawing out for every character. It's the manufacturing. So you need to keep a lot of time for manufacturing and for the fitting, because the wardrobe that does not fit your actor well is of no use. So this entire process takes at least 6 months is what you should keep in mind, where right from designing to creation to manufacturing to fitting. So those 6 months go parallelly with the films, pre-production.
Yeah, Sonam, I just needed to know, okay, there are lots of costume which makes a trend also. Like, तो आपकी ऐसा कोई costume होगा जो एक trending में हो गया था, and you feel happy seeing it. See, this is Sonam style actually.
I don't know. I mean, you have to tell me. I just know that when I did Delhi 6, I wore those like short floral kurtas with those with big salwars. So that I know that everybody was wearing those bandanas, the crop tops with all that. I know that became very trendy. I know that during Prem Ratan Dhan Payo, all my though everything that I wore, from the green and the yellow thing, I know that there were lots of, because I remember my designer saying, Anamika had only made those clothes for me, and I remember saying that I can't tell you how many people have made this and how many copies are being made of this lilac sari or this, Surajji likes to have this particular yellow and this particular purple in all his films. So, that became very trendy. So, yeah, I mean, there are some cinema and film have a huge impact on how people dress, and that's why it's a testament to Bhanu Athaiya, because she, with her designs, has created so many trends, like Sadhna ji's short tight kurtas, which is very very 60s. You think of 60s and 70s, and you think of those tight churdars and those tight kurtas. Only Sadhna ji could wear those, and I think Lolo has got that body type of that body type of hers, which I think is quite significant in that area. So every time you think of that era, you think of that outfit. So yeah.
I think we'll have to end here. There's another session coming up. Yeah, yeah. There's another thing. Yeah, is it? Yeah. So we have to end here. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. Thank you.